It's easy to forget that the internet holds more than just memes and videos. Some stories stay hidden in plain sight. This is LurmoStories, where we uncover the things most people wouldn't dare search for. Brace yourself. Tonight's stories are darker than you think. I took the job because it was cash and no questions. Temp agencies sent me to a private records company outside Dayton, Ohio. No sign on the building, just a beige warehouse wedged between a self-storage place and a shuttered diner. Front office looked normal enough. Carpet squares, humming lights, a woman at a folding desk checking names off a clipboard. She didn't ask for ID, just handed me a badge with my first name written in marker and said I'd be helping with inventory cleanup. Inventory was in the back. First few hours were boring. Moving banker boxes from shelves, scanning barcodes, stacking them on pallets. The back rooms weren't labeled, just long, concrete corridors with numbered doors, each one locked with a keypad. Every door sounded different when it closed, some thin, some heavy like a vault. Around hour 5, a guy in a polo shirt showed up. No badge. Late 30s maybe? He watched me work without saying anything, then told me I was done for the day. As I grabbed my jacket, he stopped me and said there was one more thing. Just a quick task, 5 minutes. We went deeper than I'd been before, past the forklifts, past the pallet stacks, into an area where the lights were dimmer and the air felt colder. Door 14B. He keyed it in and stepped aside like he didn't want to go first. Inside was a narrow room with metal shelving and a single rolling cart. No boxes, just loose items in clear evidence bags. Phones, wallets, watches. A pair of glasses with one arm snapped off. He told me to take the cart to the end of the hall and leave it by the freight elevator. Didn't explain why he couldn't do it himself. I asked what this stuff was. He said, unclaimed. The bagged phone on top buzzed while we were standing there. No ringtone, just vibration against metal. He looked at it, then at me, and said I could leave as soon as I finished the task. As I pushed the cart into the hallway, I noticed something written in Sharpie on the inside of my badge. Not my name, a time. I checked my phone while walking. No service down there. The time on the badge was 20 minutes ahead of my watch. I figured it was some internal shift thing and kept moving. The hall felt longer than before. Same numbered doors, but the gaps between them weren't even anymore. Door 15 was farther from 14 than it should have been. The wheels on the cart rattled no matter how straight I pushed it. Halfway down, I heard another cart moving somewhere ahead of me. Slow, stop-start, like someone unsure which direction to go. I called out, thinking it was another temp. No answer. I passed an open doorway. No keypad, just ajar. Inside were chairs, not stacked, lined up, facing the same wall. Each chair had tape on the back with handwritten names. First names only. Some crossed out. I kept going. The freight elevator wasn't at the end of the hall. It was recessed into a side corridor that hadn't been there earlier. The call button was already lit. Doors open. Inside the elevator were more carts. Same metal, same rattling wheels. All empty except one at the back. On that cart was a plastic bin. Inside the bin were badges like mine, handwritten names, some smeared, some clean, all with times written on the inside. I didn't put my cart down. I backed out of the elevator and started pushing it the other way. The hallway lights flickered and one of the doors started beeping, a keypad lock cycling over and over, like someone kept entering the wrong code. My phone vibrated. Still no signal, but I had a notification preview. Missed call, unknown number. The timestamp matched the time written on my badge. The guy in the polo shirt was standing by door 14B when I got back. He looked relieved, like he'd been waiting longer than expected. Asked if I left the cart. I told him the elevator wasn't where he said it was. He nodded and said that was fine. Said, plans change. Then he looked at my badge and frowned. You're late, he said. I asked late for what? He didn't answer, just reached past me and peeled the badge off my jacket. The adhesive was stronger than it should have been, hurt when it came off. He handed me a different badge. Same marker handwriting, different name, different time. He told me this one would be quicker. I didn't argue. I wanted out of the building, and this seemed like the only path they recognized. The new badge time was 10 minutes behind the current clock on my phone, whatever that meant. This task was different. He walked with me this time. We stopped at door 22C. No keypad, just a handle and a deadbolt. He unlocked it with a physical key he kept on a lanyard under his shirt. Inside was a room that looked unfinished. Bare concrete, drain in the center of the floor, fluorescent lights mounted too low. Against one wall was a table. On it were personal items laid out carefully, not bagged, shoes paired neatly, a folded hoodie, a wallet opened flat like someone was checking it. My job was to verify the list taped to the table, read items out loud, confirm they were present. As I did, I noticed the names on the paper weren't inventory codes. They were the same names from the chairs, the crossed out ones. The last name on the list wasn't crossed out yet. It was the name on my first badge. I told him there was a mistake. He said that was normal, said the system lagged behind reality sometimes. Then he pointed to the drain and asked me to check if it was clear. I knelt down. The drain cover was warm. When I looked closer, I saw something stuck in the grate. Plastic edge, like a badge corner. I stood up fast. He didn't move, just checked his watch and said we were almost done. My phone vibrated again. Same unknown number. This time, a voicemail preview loaded without audio. Just text. Please don't finish the task. I dropped the badge on the floor and walked past him. He didn't grab me, didn't raise his voice.
Just said my name once, calm, like reading it off a form. The exit doors were unlocked, front desk empty, badge pile gone. I never went back to the temp agency. The listing disappeared the next day. Sometimes my phone buzzes at exact times with no notification. When it happens, I check my wallet. The badge corner I pulled from the drain is still there. The time written on it passed last week.
Not sure why I'm writing this here, but I don't want my name attached to it. I worked at a mid-sized logistics company in Ohio. Beige building, open office, constant churn. People came and went so often that HR stopped announcing departures unless someone important left. You'd show up on Monday, and half a desk cluster would be different faces by Friday. That's normal. That's how places like this stay cheap. About 3 years ago, a guy named Mark sat 2 desks down from me. Not a friend, not memorable in any special way. Early 30s, khakis, button-downs with the sleeves always a little wrinkled. He drank the bad coffee without complaining and typed louder than anyone else. That's mostly what I remember, the sound of his keyboard cutting through the low office noise. Mark handled compliance reports, boring, repetitive work that nobody checked unless something broke. He was good at it. When he was out sick one day, things piled up fast. He talked too much during lunch. Not oversharing, just small observations. Complaints about traffic, jokes about the printer. The kind of guy you nod at and half listen to. One Tuesday morning, his desk was empty. Chair gone, monitor unplugged, no personal stuff left behind. Even the cheap family photo he had taped to the cubicle wall was missing, but the tape outline was still there, yellowed compared to the rest of the fabric. I figured he quit without notice. It happened.
Around 10, our supervisor asked if anyone could pull last week's compliance numbers. I said Mark usually handled it. She looked at me like I'd said something wrong. "We don't have a Mark on this team," she said, smiling in that tight, HR-approved way. I laughed, thinking she was joking. I pointed at the empty desk. She followed my finger, frowned slightly, and said, "That desk's been vacant since April." It was August. Later, I asked 2 coworkers if they remembered Mark. One shrugged and said the name sounded familiar but couldn't place it. The other told me I was probably mixing him up with someone from another department. That afternoon, I checked the shared drive. Mark's folders were still there, dated files, initials matching his. I opened one. Halfway through reading, the file closed itself. A system message popped up. "This document has been removed." By the end of the day, the folders were gone too. I went home unsettled, but still trying to rationalize it. Turnover, memory gaps, office politics. The next morning, facilities replaced the cubicle wall where his desk had been. Brand new fabric, no tape marks, no discoloration. It looked like he'd never been there at all. And that's when I noticed something worse. The sound of typing was still there. The typing didn't stop. At first, I thought it was muscle memory. Open offices are full of phantom sounds. Printers that aren't printing, phones vibrating that never rang. But this was steady, fast, aggressive. The exact rhythm Mark used, hammering keys like he was mad at the spreadsheet. It was coming from the empty desk. I stood up and leaned over the cubicle divider. Nothing there. No keyboard, no computer. Just a blank surface and a rolling chair no one ever used. The sound kept going. I asked the guy across from me if he heard it. He paused, listened, then said, "Hear what?" I didn't push it. Around noon, an email went out from compliance. No sender name, just a generic internal address. Subject line, outstanding reports. It listed 5 missing documents. All of them were Mark's responsibility. All of them had deadlines that day. People complained. Management got tense. Our supervisor asked who had been covering compliance since April. Nobody answered. She assigned the work to a new hire who looked barely out of college. An hour later, he walked over to me, pale, holding his laptop. "These files," he said quietly, "they're already filled out, perfectly, but they don't exist in the system until I open them. Then they disappear." I asked where he found them. "In the recycle bin," he said, "but not the normal one. There's another directory. It doesn't show up unless you search Mark's name." My stomach dropped. I didn't tell him anything. I just told him to forward me whatever he could. Nothing came through. That afternoon, HR sent out a mandatory reminder about appropriate internal conversations and avoiding the spread of misinformation regarding personnel. No names mentioned, no incident referenced. When I walked past the conference room, I saw Mark sitting inside. Same clothes, same posture, typing on a laptop that wasn't plugged into anything. I stopped, took a step back, looked again. The room was empty, but the chair closest to the wall was slightly pulled out, and the whiteboard behind it had fresh writing. Still working. I took a photo with my phone. Later, when I checked, the image was gone, replaced by a black frame and corrupted data. That night, I searched the company directory from home. No Mark, no similar names, no trace. Except one thing. An org chart from 5 years ago, archived on an old intranet page. Low resolution, hard to read. There were more people in it than there should have been, and several positions were filled by blank spaces, like names had been erased without shifting the layout. One of those blanks sat exactly where Mark should have been. The next morning, the typing was louder than ever, and someone had left a printed report on my chair. No header, no author, just a note at the bottom. They said I left. I didn't sit down. The report on my chair was warm, like it had just come off a printer. The numbers were accurate, too accurate. They referenced audits that hadn't happened yet, vendors we hadn't onboarded. Dates in the future, all marked completed. At the bottom of every page was the same set of initials, M.R. I took it to my supervisor. She barely glanced at it before handing it back. "Where did you get this?" she asked. I told her the truth. Her smile disappeared. Not replaced with anger or fear, just fatigue. She closed her office door and lowered her voice. "We don't talk about that desk," she said. "If you want to keep working here, you won't either." I asked what happened to him. She shook her head. "He didn't leave. That's the problem." Before I could ask more, she opened the door and the conversation was over. By noon, the typing stopped. The office felt wrong without it. Like losing a background noise you didn't realize you depended on. People were tense. Systems lagged. Reports failed to generate. Emails bounced back without errors. At 2:17 p.m., the power flickered. Every monitor in the office refreshed at once. On every screen was the same internal chat window. No username, no avatar, just a single line of text. I finished everything they gave me. Someone screamed. Someone else unplugged their computer. IT ran around telling people to stay calm. Then another message appeared. There's nothing left for me to do. The lights went out completely. In the dark, I heard typing again. Not fast this time. Slow, deliberate, like someone choosing each key carefully. When the emergency lights kicked in, the empty desk wasn't empty anymore. The chair was occupied. But whoever sat there didn't look finished. HR called it a system glitch, an external breach. They offered counseling. 3 people quit that week. The new hire never came back after that day. A month later, the company restructured. New layout, new teams, no compliance department at all. Outsourced. Before the remodel, I went back one last time. Under the carpet where Mark's desk used to be, carved into the concrete, were words too deep to be an accident. Still employed. I don't work there anymore. Sometimes, when I'm up late answering emails for my new job, I hear typing through my speakers for just a second after I shut my laptop. And every so often, an email lands in my spam folder with no sender, no subject, just a single line, waiting for reassignment. I went to Ohio for a 3-day work thing that didn't need me in the office. Cheap motel, rental car, nothing memorable. On the second evening, I took a wrong turn trying to avoid traffic and ended up on a county road that felt abandoned in a deliberate way. Long stretches without houses, then sudden clusters that looked half-finished, like the builders had left mid-argument. There was a historical marker sign on the side of the road. Brown metal, white text. The kind nobody reads unless they're already lost. I pulled over mostly to reset my GPS. The marker described a decommissioned weather observation site used briefly in the late 90s. It said the remains were still accessible via a gravel access road, approximately 0.4 miles east. I don't care about weather stations, but the road was right there, and the sun was still up. The site wasn't much. A low concrete building with a steel door hanging crooked. Chain link fencing fallen inward like it had been pushed. Inside smelled like dust and old insulation. No graffiti, which felt wrong. Places like that usually attract bored kids. I noticed the notebook first. Spiral bound, sitting on a metal desk bolted to the floor. No mildew, no mouse damage, like it had been placed there recently. The first page was a checklist. Equipment readings, timestamps, initials. The handwriting stopped me. Narrow letters, uneven pressure, the way I write when my wrist hurts.
I told myself that was coincidence, until I turned the page and saw my phone number written in the margin. Not a phone number, my phone number. Same spacing, same way I crossed my sevens. There were more notes, complaints about the road noise at night, a joke about Ohio gas stations selling food that looks punished, something about the lock sticking unless you lifted the door. I tried calling the number written there. My phone rang in my pocket. I checked the date on the last entry. It was from 8 years ago. During a year, I know exactly where I lived because I still have the lease emails. Behind the desk, scratched into the concrete wall, was a line carved deep with something sharp. You came back late last time. Don't do that again. I didn't remember being there, but standing in that room, with the door not closing right unless lifted, I knew exactly how long it took for the light outside to disappear. I left the site with the notebook. I know you're not supposed to take things, but it felt less like stealing and more like recovering property. The drive back to the motel kept looping the same thought. If I'd never been there, then who left reminders meant specifically for me? At the motel, I spread the notebook out on the bed. The later entries were stranger. Not paranormal, not dramatic, just procedural in a way that made my skin crawl. Notes about waiting in the car until the lights on the ridge went out. A warning written twice to never park facing the building. A sketch of the interior, including a small storage room I hadn't noticed. That bothered me enough to go back the next morning. Daylight made the place look smaller, more pathetic. I found the storage room immediately. Door half hidden behind a rusted cabinet. Inside were shelves, empty except for a cardboard box sealed with duct tape. On the tape was my name. First name only. Same handwriting. Inside the box were printed photos, not old ones, digital prints. All taken from inside the building, pointed outward. My rental car parked at different angles. Me stepping out. Me standing by the fence reading the marker sign. One photo showed me looking straight at the camera. I didn't remember posing, but the expression was clear. Annoyed, like someone had interrupted me. There was also a folded map, hand-drawn, the county roads around the site, marked with arrows and times. One route circled in red had, "Don't use, too visible," written next to it. At the bottom of the box was a motel keycard. Same brand, same logo. Room number scratched off. Back at the motel desk, I asked the clerk how long they kept security footage. She said about a month, unless there was an incident. I asked if anyone had stayed long-term, on and off, over the years. She shrugged and said people come through all the time. I didn't tell her I found a key that still worked. That night, someone knocked on my door just after midnight. 3 slow knocks, familiar spacing. I didn't answer. Under the door, a piece of folded paper slid in. From the notebook, torn cleanly. It read, "You're early this time. That complicates things." On the back was a time written in pen, 3:40 a.m. I checked the people. The hallway was empty, but the carpet showed fresh tracks, flattened in a path that stopped directly in front of my door. I sat on the bed, watching the clock, trying to remember something that refused to surface, knowing with certainty that if I missed that time, something worse than curiosity would show up instead. I didn't go to the site at 3:40. I packed the car and left at 3:15, driving without a route, just putting distance between myself and anything familiar. Around 4:10, my phone buzzed once. No notification, just the vibration. When I checked it, there was a new photo in my gallery, taken from the passenger seat. The road ahead, my hands on the wheel. Time-stamped 5 minutes in the future. I pulled over hard enough to feel the tires slide. The back seat was empty. Trunk empty. No signs of anyone else. The next photo appeared while I was standing outside the car. This one showed me from behind, looking into the trunk. I deleted them. They reappeared instantly. By sunrise, I was parked at a rest stop 2 states away, exhausted and wired. I opened the notebook again, slower this time. The early pages weren't logs, they were corrections.
Don't argue with him. Leave the notebook where he can see it. Remind him about the time, but don't explain why. Near the back was a list titled Results. Dates followed by short notes. Left early, took longer to reset. Stayed overnight, bad outcome. Didn't come back for years, site degraded. The last entry had no note, just yesterday's date. I flipped to the final page. It was blank, except for a paragraph written lighter, like the pen was running out. If you're reading this and you still don't remember, that's good. It means you haven't finished yet. When it clicks, you'll want to fix it. Don't. The proof is the point. Once you understand why you were there, you'll stay. At the bottom was a simple instruction. Destroy the notebook. Forget the place. Do not try to confirm anything else. I threw it in a rest stop trash can and drove until my tank was empty. Weeks later, back home, I found something folded behind my breaker panel while fixing a blown fuse. A motel key card. Same brand. Room number scratched off. I don't check historical markers anymore. And when I catch myself remembering roads I've never driven, I stop thinking immediately. Because I don't want it to click. I don't want to know what made me go back the first time.
This was LurmoStories, and what you heard tonight was only a fraction of what's out there. The rest is still lurking in archives, waiting for someone like you to go looking.